I'm going to let Satish introduce his panel and his topic and take us through what I hope is a compelling afternoon conversation on the light topics of AI and AR. Satish.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for coming for the last panel of today. I think many of you had to be pulled from the great VR exhibit, so hopefully you've now reoriented yourself to the live picture here on the stage. I think we've got a great panel today to talk about the intersection of AI, AR, and data, and how they'll affect our life in New York City. And so we heard earlier today from Justin when the EDC was thinking about the initiative that would eventually be the Media Lab. In the emerging markets sort of report, there was no mention of AI or AR, and that was just 7 years ago. So we know that these technologies are moving faster than ever before. And I think what's more interesting, or most interesting about this is how they're starting to intersect together. When one sector makes an advancement, it seems to create a need that the other sector can solve. And so that's what we're going to try and talk about today. Indeed, in the Combine, just in the last 2 years, the 2016 cohort had 10 teams, maybe one with an AR sort of focus, and the rest were using maybe data or maybe some AI sort of features. In the second cohort, I would say the majority had some type of AR functionality, and everybody was using some sort of AI or a data feature. So it's changing fast. We're seeing in the venture space as well. And so I do want to start with sort of a broader picture question. An earlier panel was doing something called Media 2020, so we're looking at the 5 to 10 year outlook. Let's look at more of like the 10-year plus outlook as we talk about our sort of view on these topics. So we'll start with a broad one, and we'll start with Emily from Samsung Ventures. So how will AI, AR, and data intersect in the future, in the sense that what new spaces or industries do you see being created?
Yeah, so I think they're really intricately combined, and it's interesting use cases because everyone talks about data. We laughed about this coming in many far-reaching ways, but in one way, AR is a data vacuum, just sort of hoovers information in, and AI is this engine that enables it. And so the messier the data is, the more unstructured. And think about that, like what is more unstructured than inside, outside the real world in dealing with everything in real time? So I think there's going to be lots of fascinating use cases about life. Like I saw a company that was doing training for police officers, like really helping them make real-time decisions. We talk a lot about medical imagery and advances. Like I think there's people talk about AI killing jobs. I think there's this persistent layer of education and training and advancement that's just going to change the world.
Just a quick follow-up. I think AI, AR, and data are inseparable. You could probably throw in IoT as well.
Because every buzzword.
Right, and then because they always get go together, specifically about AR. If you think about it, there's two things. First, it needs to understand the environment you're in, and computer vision and geolocation is not enough. You need some AI. You need some data to really put information in context. And then the second thing is visualizing this information around you so you can interact with it. So when you look at these kind of aspects of AR, then you see that AI is going to be part of every single thing. And if you look at a lot of the computer vision efforts out there, I haven't seen anyone in the last year that is not using machine learning or deep learning in some form. So these things are really inseparable.
And then as you start to look through a city like New York City or any major city, how many different interactions are happening at the same time and all the different things you could optimize for. So without the data and without AI, you're never going to be able to process and come up with the optimized experiences that you could get with AI.
So Colin, you certainly see how these technologies are interweaving their way into city life. What is, let's say, the one technology barrier that you see that once we overcome that, this will be truly ubiquitous sort of part of our life every day, like a mobile phone?
Well, I think there's, the user experience is still, I think it has some ways to go, having to pull out your phone or put on a headset. We're constantly looking for opportunities to get away from a heads-down experience to a heads-up experience. So, we're taking a shortcut at intersection where we're basically rendering computer information in real time in space on digital screens because we're trying to get to that experience really quickly. So I think, as there's some work to do around the the user experience of using the technology and integrating it into your everyday life.
And how about from the ventures side? What are you seeing are problems that are being solved that will really make this a ubiquitous sort of everyday life thing?
So, Superventure stands for our mission, which is giving superpowers to the people so we can all change the world. So it's eventually going to touch on every aspect of our lives. And I think, what excites me is that it can really enhance anything that you do, whether you're playing, studying, performing your job. If you think about every aspect of your life, you can see how AR is going to improve that and make us better at everything that we do, including changing the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally a layer. That's how I view it. So where people look at this silo of what you do, and I think the interesting changes will be, like in New York City, you can see divergent data, divergent information, but then you think about, I don't know where Justin is, but we're both from the same tiny hometown where industry is dying, there's not a lot of economic development, and you think about using data and AR to revolutionize jobs, which frankly are not there anymore. So really, like, how do you retrain workers? How do you re-enable people who did manufacturing, textiles, all these industries, and you just layer this data of information they don't have access to?
So that's a great segue to what I had in mind for the next question. So Columbia in January hosted a great panel with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett up at Columbia University, and there were many questions that were covered about life and technology. And one student asked, how does industrial automation affect jobs in the future? And we know, we've read in the news some very negative sort of opinions on that in some ways. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett had some great responses. Both of them admitted that productivity is a plus. We would take that any time, but certainly conceded that there's an imbalance in how the value creation of the productivity is distributed to the population. And so I thought Bill Gates ended it best by saying, while conceding there's some issues that we need to take care of, the macro picture it enables is an opportunity. And so perhaps, let's say we can start with Ori. How do you think, what are the positive things that will happen to job markets? What new industries will form? What new careers could be formed in the 10 to 15 plus time frame when, again, these technologies are part of our everyday life?
Yeah, I think, everybody is afraid of automation. It's going to take our jobs. But the way I like to think about it is that with AR and AI, we can actually have a sort of a chance to fight against the machines and extend our ability to really live in a world where everything is automated. So I don't think it's so much about new jobs, although we're going to have a whole set of new jobs, but it's really about upskilling or retraining employees that are currently working on some boring automated that can be automated and moving them into kind of higher value jobs where humans are critical, but then you use the augmentation, whether it's through machines, AI, and AR, to make you even better at that job. And again, I think it's going to touch every single job you can think of. And if you look at some of the AR companies out there, one is actually called Upskill because they realized that's exactly what they can do to avoid this loss, of jobs.
So maybe it's like not person versus machine, but person with machine. And
exactly.
The interesting opportunity there is also being able to focus on the more human problems that computers are having challenges with or will have challenges with. Are you seeing any companies with that are allowing people to have these higher order opportunities? Or
yeah, I mean, I think right now it's already being used, and most people don't know smart glasses, which we think it died with Google Glass, but in fact it's live and kicking. There are over 40 products out there that people are using, but mostly in the enterprise. So it's large corporations using it, maybe 10, 20, 50, or 100 units in a company, but they're showing that it's improving lots, business processes, improving workers' productivity, efficiency. They're creating less errors because they have this kind of added capability in their field of view that is improving anything that they do.
So as you look to, let's say, and anyone can answer this, as you look to, let's say, entrepreneurs or students entering, they're in education now, they're maybe perhaps thinking of a new venture, and now they're looking at the future in some way. what do you recommend to someone like that in terms of what their background should be, what they should be learning to be able to sort of survive, adapt, and actually be successful in a life where, again, everyday technology, certain jobs have been reduced because now productivity is up, but maybe there's more opportunities in other spaces. What would you say to someone who is, let's say, in school right now?
So may I get started? I started in AR 10 years ago. There's Stephen Fine here, which started, 28 years ago. But back then, there weren't a lot of tools that you could use. Today, this year, we saw the big players jumping in with AR platforms. It's amazing. It's commoditizing the technology and allowing anyone out there to get started right away. If you have some programming skills, some 3D skills, you can immediately build some AR apps. So that's with AR Kit, AR Core, it's a great place to start. But it's tricky because it's so easy that there's a lot of, excuse my French, crap out there, right? How many of you have downloaded AR Kit apps so far? See some? And anything you like, especially, that really caught your attention? Throw some names.
Go ahead, yell it out.
The ruler is super.
The ruler, right? So the tape measure. Yeah. Such a simple thing. It's the actual tape measure is dead. It just doesn't know it yet, because the iPhone and Android phones are going to replace that very soon.
So I think anytime there's so much change in the environment, it's very difficult to focus on everything that's moving so fast and trying to choose what technology or what platform or what thing you're going to work on. I find that's really helpful to focus on things that will be the same in 10 years. So what are those human needs that are going to be the same? We're still going to need a tape measure 10 years from now, so no matter what platform you choose or what tools you use, if you focus on solving these human issues and think about these as tool sets to do that in a better way, you're going to be in a better place.
Yeah, in the same way, there's, AR people who've been doing this, AI had dark days. Like all of these trends have light and dark days. And I would say most people who are solving those problems didn't have masters in computer science. They were math and physics. They were thinkers. They were problem solvers. They like challenges. And those folks still do board games in their free time. And so it's a reminder that not only do you need to solve the human needs, but it's really about problem solvers. And I think that's the most important thing to think about.
So Emily, can you relate that to sort of what do you look for in the teams that you invest in, I guess, that are trying to push products into the space? Keep elaborating on that.
I think we are, I'm fortunate that we look at entrepreneurs around the globe. And so, when you're solving large, complex problems that, can't get pushed to users and users tell you exactly what you need, you have to have a strong point of view about what you think the challenges are. And so when we're working with teams, it's many of the same dynamics across all the technologies. It's how do they solve problems, how the teams interact with each other, how are their relationships, and how are they validating their problems and learning and moving quickly. And I think this space is no different from anything else, which is I don't think we know exactly same way you were snarky about AR kits, like every presentation I see has AI in it. And sometimes it's just a decision tree, And so my request is for folks to be authentic about what you're doing, because most of the time the entrepreneurs that are really solving the hard problems and the big problems have just not put the buzzwords into their presentation. It's fairly obvious what they're trying to do.
Colin, how about you for hiring at intersection? If you're not finding the classically trained data scientists, what are you looking for in new hires?
Curious people who are just crazy about learning, about exploring the opportunities. I feel like there's a constant feeling of a gold rush as there's new technologies enable new experiences, and people who can think on multiple levels, so people can zoom out, look at the macro level, what's happening in the market, where the opportunities exist, and zoom way in and think about the technology or a specific experience. So it's less about the classical training and more about the creative minds, people who can really think differently and look at what we're doing and put it in context over the past 15 years and think about the next 10.
So when my 5-year-old daughter can find the right Wi-Fi router in my house and start a music app, and she's only 5 years old, that means she's a job with you?
Absolutely.
She's 18? Okay.
That's it.
If you guys were here all day, dad jokes were sort of the theme for a lot all day, so I just did one here. So I wanted to end with, just talking about New York City specifically. We know, and after this we'll have some time for audience questions, but we know New York City, with all metrics, is probably one of the fastest growing technology sectors, startup ecosystems in the country right now, which is great. We're excited about that. And so there's a lot of momentum at this point. And so my question to anyone on the panel, or three, is that as a city right now, are we ready to leverage where this tidal wave of technology is going? In other words, from your lens, as you push your products or investments or ventures in this space, is New York City ready for this? Or what is missing still?
So, I would say New York City has an extraordinary opportunity. There's 176 languages spoken. We're a really divergent group of people with an extraordinary amount of data being created. And so the opportunity to say, we can leverage this opportunity. I think there is the technology here. I think there's a lot of funding. I mean, there's $2.3 billion. It's going to freak you out, in AR over the last 2.5 years. 152 companies just by the big five acquired in AI. I mean, there's a lot of movement going on. I would say, honestly, policies is something we have to really think about. Like on the positive end, which is how we use AR to really help us think through biases in our policies to help underserved markets with security and all those areas. And I think that's a huge opportunity. But I think we have to really think about how the city itself helps growth and gets out of our own way.
I'm very bullish about New York in this area. You guys heard about the city-backed AR and VR lab that is upcoming in the city? Everybody?
Yeah.
I think big round of applause for the city, for NYU, for Columbia, and actually jumping into this and really showing, putting their money where their mouth is, which is amazing. We hope to be part of that effort. It's kind of running the venture part of the lab. And my personal goal is to try to make New York City the capital of the AR and VR world. Now, it may be an uphill battle because, currently the West Coast is probably leading, whether it's San Francisco or LA. But if you think about, what you said, the energy, the diversity, the funding here in the city is much broader than just tech, which is what you see in Silicon Valley. Here it's about life. And AR is about life. So I think the convergence of all these industries, of all this talent, and now with some focus on the tech from the city, from universities, I think we have a really good chance to achieving that goal.
And I think we are the ultimate training environment. Like we have this great data set that's so distributed. If you think about all these different use cases and all, like literally different city structures, different needs. We may not rock the car needs, but everything else we have. So I think I agree with you. I think New York City will shine the path.
If you're
It is the definition.
If you're trying to develop products for cities and new experiences where we're all coming together and living, there's no better place to do it. So I think, ready or not, like it or not, this is happening in New York City, and we're going to see the development and the.
So, Colin, give me one challenge that the city is working on but needs to overcome in terms of as you try to implement technology into the infrastructure here.
A challenge that the city has to. I think it's. Look at so many things, maybe not related exactly to AR, but to make the city, or AI, but to make the city more friendly. You can't ride an electric bike in New York City. You can't fly a drone. Is there a way to make the experimentation come out of these small spaces, maybe like the Navy Yards, and how do you bring this into a more of an experimentation in the city? So I think a little bit of freeing of the reins and seeing, letting people get out there and make some mistakes, but push things forward.
Maybe Intersection can launch some city hoverboards or something, right? We don't need streets. That's a Back to the Future joke. So, did I just date myself by saying that?
I think you did.
I think I did. All right, so we got some time for questions from the audience. Who wants to see that hand first over there?
I don't think you're on.
Why don't you project?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. So when we're looking at a city such as New York, which is so diverse, how do you think we can implement this AR and AI systems where the data is so diverse, there's so many outliers? How can you make it personal for everyone without making it too broad of a system where it's not really personal for anybody?
That's super exciting, because I think this implies also getting past kind of our personal systems into how does the city augmented with information and display that's tailored to that moment. I think it's all about what you want to optimize for. So there can be very basic things that we're trying to optimize for. It might be, you might have a personal layer or something that gives you the city a certain look, but there are things that we all need. You need to move people through space. You need to have a safe environment. You need to, find your way. So being able to overlay these things that everybody needs to live in a city and be successful. So how can you move 20,000 people that just showed up in Grand Central Station and understand that they're probably going to a Yankees game and start to overlay these instructions that would communicate to the people in the 160 different languages to get to where they're going. So I think it's solving for those base needs.
I think it's the basis for any startup. It's you see a need and you feel a need, right? Just look anywhere in the city and you'll see people that could use some form of augmented reality. Start with that. Of course, try to shoot for the app or capability that would have the largest number of people that would need it. But don't try to solve everything, because nobody can.
I have a question for Colin. I'm an optimist, but I'm nearly always disappointed about the underleveraged potential of digital out-of-home screens to unite communities in cities. Can you give me some confidence back that these screens can be used for contextual information, which would bring more value to the consumer and more value to the city as well?
Yeah, so outfitting New York City with screens, and there'll be about, I think, 12,000 digital screens on the streets of New York, each with its own compute and, obviously knowing its own location. It's really what we're deploying is an architecture or a platform across New York City that's going to allow people to participate and overlay digital experience on New York City that is reflective of the city. So I think this is what's important to us, is that when you get out of the internet, where I think the internet I'm an optimist, but I'm also a skeptical optimist, where I think the internet's failed us in a lot of ways, where we've had these self-reaffirming silos of people on the internet that have just, fed off of their own ideas and not really come together. And the thing that's amazing about cities is that this is where people, cultures mix up and collide, and all kinds of interesting things happen. So if we can create this platform that has the ability to deliver messages and to feed off of all the available data in a city, to program the city in real time, what will it say? It won't be a static thing. It won't be a single corporate message. We have on Link NYC, I think over 50% at times the information has to do with communities. So, understanding and optimizing for those problems that affect all of us is what we're really most concerned about. So if there's underperforming school and we know that parent-teacher meetings aren't happening, can we, at the moment, 20 minutes before the parent-teacher meeting's happening, have a screen turn and remind people in a way that, 50 feet down the road, the school is having parent-teacher meetings. Can you go and, there's an opportunity to participate. So I think of it as just trying to make it as open as possible and trying to have it reflect the city and all the people in it. It's a big challenge, but, we have to face it.
Hello. Hi. Specifically about New York City, when this technology emerges, my curiosity is about their effect on our relationships as humans. And I guess my question, if we were to imagine when they become mainstream, how much do you think it's going to affect our relationship, and is it going to make the regular conversation kind of boring without like all these utilities and like VR? Like, are we going to be bored when we take them off and talk to regular people? And the second part of it is that, do you think we're going to reach a point in the future where we would rather be immersed in this new world and communicate through that than living in this world and communicating this way?
Now, my wife and I always talk, but we're looking in the same direction at the phone. So you and I were just talking about
Yeah, we were
a
just
displayless world, right?
Yeah,
In a zero UX world.
we could talk about this for like 12 hours, so this is terrible, and the clock is on. So, I mean, I think three things. One, if you go into an elevator, you look on the subway, you look in the lobby as you walked in today, everyone is heads down, sort of inclusive in their own world. And I think why probably all of us are so passionate about this is that this is a look-up world where data is porous to you, you are engaged in your environment. And so many people talk about the isolation of this technology. I actually disagree. I think people will re-engage with the world. They may have data streaming or information coming at them, but they will literally, their eyes will be up. And I think in terms of, will people want to get out of this environment? I think there's a world where 10 years from now, you're not out of the environment. Like, you may have something that is clipped behind your ear, glasses may look very different, clothes may be different, but I think the same way no one imagined you'd have this computer in your pocket that was persistently helping you, I think we can't imagine 10 years from now our interaction, not to go back to the dad jokes, but people who are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old demand engagement with technology. They're not passive viewers of technology, and so by the time they are adults, it is a enabling tool for them. It's not a distraction.
I think we have time for one more question. Right here. You. Okay,
Hello.
sorry.
I had a question. I'm a student at Baruch College, and I had, I'm always been curious about artificial intelligence, but I really don't know too much. Where would you suggest students or beginners to find resources to expand their knowledge and get started in the field of AI?
Perhaps we can also expand that to also, if you don't mind, also retraining people who are already in the workforce that want to retrain perhaps and get back into this field. So we could talk about, we could try to dial it back to, let's say, earlier we were talking about what type of training we look for in new hires, for example, right? So is it important, like we can ask that, is it important for a student to learn specifically about AI to enter a career there, or is it more important to do critical thinking, problem solving, be creative? What level of technical capabilities do you expect, I guess?
I was just going to say that, now more than ever, every conceivable resource is just available at your fingertips online. I think you just have to get online, start engaging, start learning. There's an unlimited amount of information available, and I think it's specific resources in mind. But I think that
to your question about where to start, I think it's the advice we always give entrepreneurs is start with your passion. Right? So don't study AI for the sake of AI, but for the sake of solving something that you're really passionate about. And then Google it. And then you'll find the sources that will support you in your journey.
Good answer. Okay, I think that's it for today for our panel. Please join me giving a hand to our panelists. Thank you for your questions.